Welcome to the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens Black Table Talk Edition. And today is Wednesday, November the 15th, 2023. And we're going to dive into something real good today, y'all. We have a very special guest that we have never had before, or even diving into a topic that we never even spoke of before. What we're going to talk about is what a mitigation specialist is and what they do. And we have a very special guest who's going to talk about that. But before we do that, I have my co-host, and I have Mr. Jonah Smith with me. I have Mr. Foster Sellers with me. And me, myself, I'm Travis Register. And our special guest, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Dorota Świeżewicz.
Hello there, Dorota. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How's life been treating you so far?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Busy day?
Busy day, always.
In your profession? Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a mitigation specialist.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you do?
So as a mitigation specialist, I work on both capital cases, meaning my clients are facing a death sentence, and I also work on non-capital cases. I work with juveniles who were sentenced to either life sentences or are serving, lengthy sentences. And as a mitigation specialist, I like to think of it as like storytelling. So I basically tell my clients stories, whether that's to the court or to the jury or whoever the decision maker is. I try to humanize my clients. I try to, explain their life beyond the offense and beyond sort of what got them in prison in the first place. But that's in a nutshell, yeah. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, a whole lot. You make it simple, make it sound simple, but nothing simple about it, especially when presenting us returning citizens or individuals who are not returning citizens yet, but your clients as humans.
So situate us, though, bigger picture, situate us in the context of the whole criminal justice system. Where do you fit into the biggest part of it?
Right. So I worked side by side with attorneys. I do a lot of the field work that, kind of ends up in motions or petitions that attorneys file. So I'm part of legal teams, just as you have, number of attorneys, you have investigators, you have audit experts, you also have a mitigation specialist.
Do you conduct a lot of your work during the trial, or is it mostly after the trial and during the sentencing phase?
Right. So I actually specialize in post-conviction work, which means that by the time I get on I get to work on my clients' cases, they've already been sentenced to death, or they've been sentenced to whatever other sentence they got. It's sort of like resentencing. So in the death penalty context, I do state habeas work as well as federal habeas work. So it's kind of like another layer of appeal where we actually get to reinvestigate the whole case. So it's kind of like trial, but down the line. And on top of that, we also evaluate trial teams' work. So we look at, what are the attorneys, the mitigation specialists, the investigators, whether they did a good job or not at the time of the trial.
Mm. You said about going into the field. What do you mean by going into the field?
Well, a big part of my work is chasing after people, talking to my clients' families, talking to people who may have known them, their teachers. I talk to jurors, I talk to police officers, so they are located all over the country. So that's what the field is. That's where I'm at.
So that entails a lot of door knocking and things of that matter too, huh?
Yes. And actually, when doing death penalty work, we actually are obligated to do what we call cold knocks, which means we just show up at people's door and hope they're going to be nice to us.
So the big picture is there's an individual who has been convicted of a crime and has been sentenced to capital murder,
right?
Or might be sentenced to capital murder. That's the question that's on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a great deal of research into the background and the history and try to create a picture or a story, as you say, of that individual's life to present to the judge, to the court during sentencing in the hopes for leniency.
Right.
That's the goal. Is that right? Leniency?
That's right. Yep. That's right.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, when you think about them, when us being returning citizens, and you think about what goes into a trial, and what our lawyers have to go through in order to present the best case to get us either home or as less time as possible. That's a lot. So you, in your profession, you're actually like boots to the ground. And not only are you dealing with the client, but you're dealing with the client's family.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to keep a connection with the client along with their family, along with their friends, at least until trial is over. Well, even if in some cases trial is over,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to get things overturned or get the death penalty off that individual, that client.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to stay in contact and almost like become family.
Right.
In order, to keep the ties strong and they open up more, you get more information, things like that, man. Not actually playing what you call a decoy or anything like that, but your heart is actually in this to make sure the client and the family are bounded together along with you,
Mm-hmm.
and to get the best possible outcome.
Right. Yep. So, and again, in death penalty work, I mean, it usually takes years to build relationships with our client's family because we have to get them to a place of trust, right? I mean, I'm a stranger to them, and they're about to reveal some of the most traumatic and painful moments from their life, right? So in order to get that, you have to make them feel like they're safe with you, and that takes time. So yeah, I spent years on my death penalty cases just being there for my client's family and
Whew.
Responding to phone calls when they need it and helping them with whatever it is that they need, like visits. That's a big thing. So yeah.
That's be pretty taxing, emotionally,
Can
mentally.
Can be, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background. What brought you to this? You have an interesting backstory.
Yes.
So let's let the listeners in on this.
Okay, so I was studying psychology at Berkeley. I was in, I think, the end of my junior year, and I was just kind of contemplating of where I want to go next. I was doing a lot of research at Berkeley, and Berkeley's great and known for its research. And I was thinking about going down the PhD route, going to graduate school. But I had some doubts. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm feeling it. So I applied for an internship at the death penalty clinic at the UC Berkeley Law School. And they were looking for interns that would help with research on death penalty cases. And I had no idea. I did not know anything about what death penalty was, what it looked like, what mitigation was. I had to ask them in an interview, what is mitigation? And yeah, I got the internship. I was doing mostly research at first, but they introduced me to death penalty work. I started working on a case that was based out of Alabama, and they were getting ready to file a pretty big petition. So I was spending a lot of time around the attorneys and around the law school students. And as I was kind of getting to know this line of work, it just felt natural. I really loved it. It felt meaningful. It felt like my education had served purpose, and I really enjoy working with clients. So in my senior year, or right after I graduated, I went to work for nonprofit Phillips Black. Shout out to my people.
Nice.
Yeah, they are a nonprofit organization that represents clients that are serving death sentences pretty much all over the country, but they also work with juveniles who are serving life sentences. And yeah, I was with them for 4 years. They really trained me. I did a lot of field work with them, and they kind of really gave me the hands-on experience that you really need if you want to be a mitigation specialist or a fact investigator.
Nice. What are some of the differences between, you say, a mitigation specialist who deals with capital cases versus juvenile cases?
Right. So death penalty cases are usually much more complex. So you're looking at years and years and years of work. We are looking at every single detail of our client's life. We're looking 3 generations prior to my client's life. So that takes a lot of time. That means we're digging up court records from, early 1900s and whatnot.
3 generations.
Yeah, that's actually in the ABA guidelines.
Because of the biological or the genetic effects.
Right, just to kind of get a full context of our client.
Socioeconomic, that cycle,
Right.
cycles of poverty and violence and desperation
Right.
that the client has likely
Right.
been in. You're painting that picture historically, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, and the idea behind it is that usually the parents, right, will play a big role in our client's life, and there's a lot of trauma, abuse, or mental health issues, and that doesn't start with their parents. That starts somewhere back there. So
Parents.
right, exactly, yeah. So it's a lot more work when you're working on a death penalty case. The goal usually on any death penalty case is to keep your client alive. And that means that sometimes we try to take as much time as we can, because that means my client is alive for 1 more year, 2 more years, whatever we can get. With the juvenile resentencings, we usually have some type of a more imminent deadline, like a court hearing, right? So it's much faster. The idea behind it is still the same. We do similar things. We just don't do it as much in depth as we do on death penalty cases.
Got you. So I was just going to ask, so the client petitions the court to have a mitigation specialist come in on their behalf, and then they get the ball rolling that way?
No, on death penalty cases, again, you are actually required to have a mitigation specialist. So anytime an attorney gets appointed on a death penalty case, it's their job actually to make sure they also hire a mitigation specialist and fact investigator.
Okay.
That's nice. That's strenuous. And you definitely got to be called to that type of work. You said when you did it, it felt right.
It did.
How long you been doing this?
5 years.
5 years. Think you perfected it?
No. Oh, absolutely no. No, I'm still learning. I mean, every client is different. Every case I take on is a completely different story to tell. And I take cases from all over the country. So I have a case from Louisiana, deep south. I had to learn everything, or I'm still in the process of learning everything about it. You got to do your research. You really got to understand, what you're doing, where you're working. What was it like growing up? Obviously, I don't know. I didn't grow up there. So, no, I don't. I definitely did not perfect it. And I don't think anyone can, honestly, in this line of work. I think there's always something you're going to learn.
I suspect that judges very much appreciate the work that you do. You're basically working for not only the defendant, but the judge as well, because the judge is, of course, the one who sets the sentence. So the information that you provide would be looked at with a great deal of scrutiny by the judge. So you're taken very seriously. The work that you do must be performed at a very high level, because we're talking about the freedom of an individual to live.
Right.
That's an astonishing amount of pressure that's on you every day, but I suspect that the judge appreciates it. How about the plaintiff's family? I don't suppose there's been. How do they feel about the work that you're doing?
In death penalty cases, again, we don't do that much court, so we really hardly ever see them.
Okay.
In the juvenile resentencings, the only time when we would come into contact with victims' family is at a hearing, or sometimes we do outreach ahead of hearing just to kind of see if, we can say something that would make them feel better. But I always let the family of the victim feel however they want to feel. They have the right to do that.
So you mentioned a lot about state. Are there mitigations in federal as well as state?
Mm-hmm.
There is.
Right, federal death penalty, yes. So
Okay.
Yes, I do mostly state work, but I do have one client who's on the federal death row.
Well, how is the conditions when you go in to meet a client that's on death row? I mean, is it from not just the conditions of the actual prison, but from the staff, how they treating your client, from day to day or from client to client?
Yeah, it really depends on facility. The death rows look so differently across the country.
Really? I would have thought that they looked very similar.
Right,
No.
me too.
No.
You've been inside of death row facilities?
Well, no, you're not allowed to do that. But
How close have you been? I mean, that's astonishing.
Right, visiting halls with my clients. So we always talk about, what it's like for them once they go back. And the first time I was on death row was in California at San Quentin. And
really, San Quentin, famous San Quentin.
Yeah.
Jiminy.
Yeah, it's actually really beautiful. It's right on the bay. They got a nice view from their cells, but
beautiful for a prison.
I know. They joke.
Right.
They joke that you're never gonna get that kind of view from your house, so they go to prison. But yeah. So again, it's very different. California is so different from Arizona. I have most experience in Arizona, so I'm gonna speak about Arizona. So. There are a few different housing facilities that house death row inmates in Arizona, and they're sort of divided depending on their security level. So when they first come on death row, they go to the max security, which is known as Browning unit, and that's really, it's essentially solitary confinement. They're 23 hours in, 1 hour out, non-contact visits only. even legal visits are non-contact, and it's just really awful. They have to be shackled anytime they leave their anywhere they go. They shower one at a time. They do everything one at a time to avoid any altercations or any contact with other men on the row. And then if they do fairly well, they go to another unit where they get a little bit more freedom, so they're still alone in the cell. But they get to do a lot of things that people in general population do. They have jobs, they take classes, they are able to see their families, they have legal visits, their contact visits where my clients are not shackled unless they get into trouble. So that's the only time when they will be shackled. And yeah, I mean, it really isn't much different in the lower security unit than it is in general population, but that varies. Now, on the federal death row, it's very much also solitary confinement, as in 23 hours in, 1 hour out, but that also doesn't always happen. So they try to get jobs to be out of the cell, but yeah.
That's in Terre Haute, the federal?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a newer facility. Hasn't been up too long.
I think death row is in the old one.
Oh, so it's in the old one. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
the dungeon, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good place, y'all.
No.
We're talking about old red brick with no air conditioning, no heat, and it's like you pretty much just suffering.
What a miserable experience.
Yeah.
And
My
it's-
home state, by the way. Yeah, Terre Haute. Yeah, that's my home state. And
Okay.
synonymous with, that place that institution is synonymous with everything evil and not good.
Mm-hmm.
So I know with lawyers, and of course y'all are different, but they go off. I don't say they go off, but they have a win-loss record.
Mm.
And with mitigation, it's not necessarily a win-loss because pretty much your clients have time already. So I guess the win would be getting them off death row and just having a life sentence.
Depends, yeah.
Depends.
I mean, I wish that's like the ultimate goal. I mean, the goal for me is to keep them alive.
Fighting for their life.
Fighting for their life,
Yeah.
right?
So I always tell my clients, as long as you're breathing and as long as you're alive, like the fight is on. But the moment, you get a warrant and you get executed, I mean, there's nothing I can do.
Do you see a lot of variation between these individuals who are on death row?
Oh, absolutely.
With regard to how well they have adapted to their new life?
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated by what life is like for individuals on death row. Paint the audience a picture of some of those individuals, what their life is like that you've been able to piece together.
I think age is a big factor. A lot of my younger clients really struggle with the thought of being on the row for 20, realistically speaking. It takes a very long time to get executed, but you're going through your whole life with the idea that you are going to die. So a lot of them struggle with that, and a lot of them would actually rather die, which is not what I want for them. The older clients, the ones that have been on the row for a longer time, they get to the point where they're like, I just kind of want to live. And that way I'm able to be there for my kids, even if it means I'm going to do the rest of my life in prison. I'm here at least. Yeah. So, they all try to find, they're just as, human as everyone in this room. They find ways that help them, deal with stress. They read, they sing, then they do art. They do all the things that we do, that help them, deal with the situation. But I think the acceptance of, or like the will to actually live and put on a fight, that really varies depending on my client's age, unfortunately.
Yeah, it seems like they'll be challenged with the fact that they're spending the rest of their life locked up and behind bars, and like you said, eventually end up dying. But here you come to kind of give them some hope. And what does that hope look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I wish they looked at it like that. I usually try to make them feel like they're worth living. Like that's my goal, because that's what it comes down to. And so again, it feels pretty hopeless that, the situation that they're in, but having worked with families and their children, executions leave people scarred for life. Like there is so much trauma that's left behind on the children. It's a very different kind of death than like natural death or even dying in a car accident. Processing that death is awful for the families. So I just always want my clients to see that even if you do spend the rest of your life in prison, we at least have you, your kids have you, your parents have you. And that's the hope that I want them to hold on to.
Exactly.
Name one of your highest moments in your line of work. And I'm going to follow up with that with one of your lowest moments.
Ooh. It's really hard to, like I said, I go day by day. So if today is a day, my clients are still alive, especially the ones on the road, that's a win. I will say a very recent moment, one of my clients who very much wants to die was connecting him with his son for the first time in 11 years. He has, lost contact with a lot of his kids. And I was able to reconnect him, and they talked on the phone for the first time. And yeah, seeing him for the first time, yeah, it was amazing. His whole demeanor was still not fully back down on wanting to go forward with the death, but he is getting there. And and that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes down to giving people hope. It's things like that. So I brought pictures because I was actually able to see his son, so I brought pictures to the visit. And now they talk every day, and he's been crying a lot, but he says those are happy tears, so I'll take it.
Yeah. Oh, that was, one thing I was gonna ask too is that when you hear about men on the row, death row, she said row for short, y'all. When they're on the row, you think us out here, we think of an individual as being hard and cold, yet human. But he just got this exterior. It's like it can't be penetrated, man. I'm on death row for for killing or whatever you done, and it's like, okay, I'm hardcore to the bone. But how much human side do you get from individuals from your clients?
It takes time. But I mean, all my clients are like teddy bears. They're sweet people. They're really sweet people. I mean, I have a client who has been convicted of 9 homicides and 3 sexual assaults. I don't look at my clients through the prism of whatever their crime is. I don't. Like, I work on their cases, right, and I know the facts, but I don't ever go in thinking like, oh, this is how my client's going to be, because everyone's more than the crime they committed. Every single one of them.
Everyone's more than the crime that they committed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And obviously with my profession, I have an understanding of there's things that have led up to, whatever happened, whatever it is that it happened. I don't go in with like an expectation of my client being like a certain way. But yeah, they're incredibly emotional beings. They gossip a lot. Men on the death row gossip a lot. Keeps them entertained. But they're all very, very, very sensitive, very caring. They're very, over years you build strong connections with your client. They always look out for you. When they know I'm in the field, they are on the phone checking in on me, this and that. Like, they're very, very caring people.
Yeah, you hear that word? Everybody in prison ain't monsters.
Right.
We're caring humans, yeah. So, I asked you a high, and then we went off into a little more about how cold or how soft the clients are. You always say the big teddy bears to get a chance to actually speak about some things that have been painful in their lives, and it comes out in tears and things that matter. So, what's been a low point?
There's been a lot. I mean, I think in this community, anytime you have an execution, it impacts you. Even if it's not your client, it's someone that you know. So, yeah, it's a lot of very, very. I mean, this work comes with a lot of painful moments. That's just kind of that's in it. But I mean, I've watched a lot of my clients lose a lot of people. Sometimes days before they were supposed to come home. That's absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, it's life, right? Like, death is a thing. I've lost some clients too. They died for a number of reasons. That's always hard, but there's a lot of low moments in this line of work. There are.
So with that being said, you're kind of tough.
I don't know.
You haven't lost any hair. You got long hair, so you haven't lost any hair and things that make it's not gray.
Pull on her hair out.
You have to be very sensitive to do this line of work. You do. You have to be very compassionate. So I think that's the opposite of being tough. But I mean, you do have to be tough at times. You do. But yeah, I mean, I'm impacted by all of it.
How has this shaped your view of the death penalty as a tool for criminal justice?
It's awful. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's really really sad because so many people actually don't know what the reality of death penalty world looks like, what it means for, clients to receive a death sentence, then spend decades living thinking about, when am I going to die? Am I going to die? Am I not going to die? At the firm I worked at, we had a client who had 9 execution dates set, and he had 9 last meals, and
Wow.
yeah.
That
Anyways,
had to be torture.
yeah. I mean, it's
9 last meals.
Yeah.
That's true. 9 last meals.
yeah.
Wow.
Right. And then you think on, when the executions happen, like even the guards that are present during the executions, they're traumatized from it. They don't want to do it. There's a lot of research emerging on that front, especially after the 2020 federal execution spree, and kind of how traumatic that was for a number of people, not just our clients' families, which is obviously front and center. They're the most impacted, but yeah, I don't think people really fully understand what
So
the death penalty world looks like.
yeah, I can only imagine. So as far as the compassion, care, or the not having preconceived notions about your clients and things like that, how are the families, affected by that once their loved one has passed on?
Wait, can you say more?
Yeah, just in terms of, like you were saying, you have to have no preconceived notions about, your clients, and you're
Right.
defending them, right? And you're trying to do the mitigation for their case, but then they end up passing, right? What is the fallout there?
I still don't understand. I'm sorry.
I guess he may be saying that, okay, you have a client, and in the process of you getting some relief for your client, he dies.
Oh, he died. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I missed that part. Okay, so how that impacts their families?
Right.
Oh gosh. Oh, it's tragic. It's really tragic. That's why, I always try to remind my clients' families that, you got to live every day as if it's last day, because prisons are very unpredictable, whether that's a stabbing that happens or an illness or, anything else along the lines. But it's very traumatic. It's very, very, very traumatic. Executions themselves are absolutely devastating for the kids. That's awful. Yeah.
Has there been follow-up research done on the children of
I think they're looking. Yeah.
inmates?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone about this, but yeah, like there needs to be like long-term follow-up to seeing how they end up in life, what they go through, because it's just out of this world to go through this. And a lot of them are, still young, and they're trying to make sense of that. Some of them are old enough to kind of understand what's going on, but like I said, it's very hard to process death by execution. It's very hard.
And to grow up knowing that you had a parent
Right.
who was killed by the
Yes.
state.
Yeah,
Would
exactly.
it would be a lifelong branding,
Right,
right?
and
It
it's-
would be a scarlet letter. That
And it's
you'd
not
wear.
bringing anyone back. Like it's
Right.
not bringing anyone back, and it's hurting a lot of people. It's also very expensive. There's, tons of downsides. Yeah.
I did a little research, and I seen that by what was presented to me with the information is that there's only like 1,000 of y'all across the United States.
Really? I didn't know that.
1,000. That's, if you think about how many people are locked up across the United States, we make up 42% of the world's population. We make up 5% of the world's population here in the United States, but we make up 42% of incarceration across the whole world.
Right.
So with all these lawyers, all these prosecutors, and all these judges, you mean to tell me just in the United States there's only 1,000?
That may be a good sign in a way, only because it might signal the decline of the use of the death penalty.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, they're not.
Is that the case? It's a very interesting point. Or is it that do you find that you're understaffed in your field? Are there few and far between?
Yeah. We
okay.
definitely don't have enough people. I see it based on my own caseload, and my colleagues that do the same thing. They're not enough people that are qualified to do, particularly death penalty work, because you have to be qualified. You have to have a certain amount of experience. You have to be able to travel. Like there's a lot of different reasons why people not really want to pursue it.
It's a long-term commitment.
It's a
sounds
very
like, as
right,
well.
absolutely. When I do accept a death penalty case, I mean, obviously life happens, and I never promise my clients I'm going to be there till the end because I don't know that. But you are looking at years of commitment. You know, you are building those relationships. You're gaining trust, so you can't just kind of like walk out and leave when you change your mind or whatnot. But I'm not sure if it's a decline of death penalty. Like I said, because I do post conviction work, I deal with people that have already been sentenced to death. So like right now, my Arizona clients are all coming from like 2005 till early 2010, when pretty much every single homicide was getting charged with a capital crime. There are a lot of guys that are still, that's what I'm working on right now. So I'm working on their post conviction appeal. So even though we might not be getting as much death penalty right now, we're still kind of dealing with aftermath of what happened decades prior to us.
So what role do you play in post-conviction appeals?
Same thing. I investigate. I do the social life history. The final product looks a little bit different because usually we file a petition with the courts. So we do all the declarations. We develop all the story. All the story that goes into any post-conviction petition is developed by us, along obviously with attorneys, but we really do the field work in terms of getting people signed and collecting records, right? That's a huge thing in any death penalty cases. We collect thousands and thousands of pages of records, and it takes time to get it, but it also takes time to digest it and kind of pull all of that into everything else that you're getting from your witnesses.
It has been maybe, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago. I never heard of mitigation specialists. So, I mean, based on just me, I see y'all as, unsung heroes because, you hear about prosecutors and how many people they didn't put away. You hear about lawyers and who they didn't got off and things that matter. But you never hear anything about mitigation specialists. I wonder why that is. Because y'all, it's boots to the ground with y'all. Y'all take risks. More so than anybody else. So it's like, how come we don't hear about mitigation specialists like we would hear about a lawyer or a prosecutor?
Right. I think it comes down to the fact that we do a lot of work in the background. So we're not in the court. Well, sometimes we're in a courtroom, but it's usually the attorneys that are the flashy ones and out there arguing or doing motion hearings or whatnot. We're in the back, trying to get information for them in the field or whatever the information is. So I think it probably stems from that. We're not really front and center. We're kind of in the back, but yeah.
You don't do it to be a celebrity, though.
No, definitely not. No.
Not at all, man. There's on the road. We appreciate you coming in. You're a very busy woman, very busy mitigation specialist, as you already said. You're traveling from state to state, city to city. And they're just pouring your heart out on clients, on death row and IRA cases here in D.C. And then, people that's really crying out for your type of expertise and work. And it's not really work; it's more like purpose. And I can see based off what you've been telling us, you may be doing the type of work that might keep a man alive or a woman alive, but at the same time, you're also providing therapy. Because if you're allowing the individual to speak and pour out his heart and about the things that's going on, and you may even give feedback on, do you think this may happen because of this or because of that? And it may cause him or her to think and be like, I never thought about that. Yeah, you're right. And for them to be able to look at their motion and get a copy of their motion, and I imagine they do get a copy of their motion if they want one after, things being filed. They get a chance to actually look at themselves through paper and it maybe ignore some things that they hadn't seen about themselves. Yeah. And it's like, and maybe they get a breakthrough as well. Right. And okay, maybe they don't get a chance to live out there in the free world anymore, but maybe as themselves they become more free and get to know more about who they are. Based off, the crimes they committed, because you said you go back like 3 generations, and you look at the trauma and the things that they've been through and all that. So it's like you add some type of therapy and a healing at the same time.
Right.
And that's powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to have you look, or maybe I wouldn't love to have you look into my background, write a book about me, explaining all of the reasons why I did X, Y, and Z, and then I could read it. I think it would be very helpful, as Travis said.
Yeah, I agree. I think most mitigation specialists would consider themselves storytellers.
Yeah, exactly.
Storytellers and unsung heroes. Because like you said, y'all in the background.
Yeah.
You know, doing all the work. Like in football, basketball, or even baseball. Whoever the star is, just like this, they may say like Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. Or they might say LeBron and the Lakers, or whoever, Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. It's like it's not the rotor and the investigators. Things that no, y'all. It ain't like you said, you're in the background. So it's like it's the people that's around the so-called celebrity or the star that makes that star pretty much, because the work that's going on behind them. Like in basketball, you got trainers, you got dietists, and you got individuals that's the personal rep, and making sure they're being careful when they're outside, out there in not the field, but out there in some public, and they're just doing them. You got them beside them saying, "Hey, don't do that. Remember who you are."
Right.
So. You all are like that for the lawyers and things that manner, because it's like you're pretty much holding it together.
True. At the same time, I mean, you really need a team of people to do any death penalty case. You do. You're not able to do it on your own. And while we may be the one that are more in the field and sort of hands-on, it's really teamwork. I mean, there's a support, the attorneys are supporting us in different ways. We're drafting declarations, affidavits. We go without sleep a lot of times, so they're proofreading everything we're putting together. I mean, it's really a team sport too. So you definitely can do it alone. We probably do a little bit more hands-on. They do more of the writing, but it's a teamwork.
We're about to get out of here, but one more question we're going to ask. Okay. And you've already given us a lot.
Okay.
You shed a whole lot of light on your expertise and your field. But what is it, one thing that you want the world to know about your profession?
It's very much needed. And I hope more people are going to recognize it. And I think it really is important in the whole process of really humanizing everyone who's incarcerated, whether that's, people on the row or not.
You heard it, humanizing them.
Humanizing.
Yeah. I think
humanizing.
Can't do that without telling someone's story. So we need more storytellers, I guess.
Y'all hear that? We about to switch jobs, y'all.
I know.
There'll be some storytellers, but no. Once again, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Black Table Talk by the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens. I hope y'all enjoyed the topic that we spoke on today, and our guests as well. Dorota, continue your endeavors, your successful endeavors, and the big heart and the fight that you have in you, to make sure men and women who are on death row and these IRA cases as well that you're dealing with in D.C. get a favorable outcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Black Table Talk, like we always say, we may be signing off, but we ain't signing out, because we always got work to do here. Y'all do good.